Ladies and gentlemen, this video is not clickbait. I think that we have just come across the best chess game of 2022. This honestly might be the craziest chess game I have ever seen in my life, played at a certain level. I don't really have any much better way to introduce this video. So if you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced player, just enjoy this absolute circus. So the setting of this game is in the Bundesliga. So the Bundesliga, for the football fans, you obviously know what that is. It's a wonderful thing in Germany, but there is a chess Bundesliga as well, where many strong players from all over the world participate. This is the first round. Both these players are playing for their respective teams. We have Max Hess, not related to Robert Hess as far as I know, but you know, you can't spell chess without Hess. And he's a 2392 rated FM. He's 24 years old. His opponent is a year older than him, Martin Lokander from Sweden, 2475 rated international master. For this game, we have the eval bar there over here. So we crop this a little differently. I'm not joking. You are about to witness just pure insanity. Okay, so thank you for clicking on this video. Today's video is sponsored by whatever therapist you will need after you see this game. Max Hess begins the game with knight to f3, looking for a ready, but immediately goes back to a queen's pawn. I don't really know why he did that. You know, generally, if you're going to play d4 on the second move, you might as well just do it. Maybe he was trying to avoid certain openings. Like maybe he was trying to avoid knight f6 lines, but after knight f3, d5, we just have a regular queen's pawn. Now here, the overwhelming main line is, no, not c5, that's illegal. The queen's gambit, right? That's what you're going to play here. Or you are going to play bishop f4 the London, or you're going to play a sideline. He plays g3. So g3 is basically an invitation to play a delayed version of a Catalan, right? You're just delaying the move c4. We saw Magnus use this in the World Championship with great success, which means that other people are going to incorporate this into their repertoires. Black can play many things here. Can play standard with e6, can copycat with g6, or can play the not-so-popular c5. c5 is black trying to play the queen's gambit themselves. So it's actually kind of interesting. Like dc5 here for white is obviously not a good move because black is going to play knight c6 and try to put two pawns in the center right away. But taking on c5 is completely possible. So c5 is just black's attempt at stirring up some trouble. It's not popular at all. Probably less than 10% of the games actually go this way because there are options for black to play more solidly. White plays bishop g2. Now, black here can continue developing behind the c-pawn, can move the bishop out, can play more standard with something like e6, but he chooses to take on d4 right away. And what's really fascinating about the current position is that white does not take back on d4. White does not do that with the knight because then black will get to play e5 with two pawns in the middle attacking the knight, and this is just good for black. In fact, it's much better for black if you look at the eval bar. What white is waiting for is for black to put the knight on c6. And if that were to happen, that would give you a target. This is really meta stuff out here in the opening. This is what white wants. And this is a Grunfeld reversed. Okay? Put on pause this game for a second. This might confuse you, but like just look at this. Bishop stares into the middle of the board. Imagine we go all the way back to the beginning and I show you the Grunfeld defense. You're about to see something that looks almost completely identical to what we have in the game. Look at this position. White has a knight and three pawns, and there's an enemy bishop staring at the center. Well, in the current game on the board, what we can get there is almost exactly that. Right? It's almost a situation where if we just follow this line, it's the same thing, but it's reversed. So already a couple minutes into this video, we have some crazy mirror image opening stuff going on, and that's just the beginning of our problems. What black really wants to avoid is white putting a bishop on g5. So that's why black plays h6. Black in the middle of the game doesn't play a knight, doesn't play a bishop, he plays h6. To avoid a situation like this, where he is getting completely swarmed in the middle of the board by white's pieces and the bishop on g5 coming in, h6 is actually the best scoring move in this position for black. And again, white doesn't want to take with anything because white wants to relieve the pressure of this knight. So white plays b3. White is like, all right, I'm just going to keep developing. You're going to have to play knight c6, at which point I will do this and this. And here, Martin Lokander submits the first move to be considered for the craziest chess game of 2022, and he plays the move h5. Yes, you are watching a near 2,500 rated near grandmaster play h6, h5 in the opening. Imagine actually doing this over the board. h6, press clock, write down the move. Opponent plays, you know, whatever move they play. You know, b3, you play h5. Opponent probably looks at you like, what? Here's the point. You know that white wants to take on d4 at some point. If they do that, h4 comes in, and black is just attacking the white king. Like, this is actually very decent for black. This is not bad at all, because white doesn't have a way to offload this knight, and e5 is going to attack the middle of the board anyway. So h5 is an extremely curious move. Never been played over the board. According to every database on every major chess website I checked, it's been played like 3 times, ever. And it's been played in like garbage blitz games. So, yeah, I mean, credit to Lokander. So now white plays h3. Trying to, you know, meet h4 with g4. However, that's usually what people do. They don't take because you can't allow black to get this, and you also cannot take with this pawn because it's just really ugly. It's doubling your h-pawns. You want to go here. However, if this were to happen, if after h3 this were to happen, here's an insane engine line for you. Knight takes g4, h takes g4, h3, bishop h1, e5. Now, this didn't happen, but check this out. Knight takes e5, loses to h2. Look at this position. The king boxes in his own bishop. In this position after h3, Lokander can actually do this and then sack the knight on g4, or the bishop, by the way. He could sack both, shove in his h-pawn. He's not winning if white defends perfectly, but if white doesn't defend perfectly, white is dead lost after 10 moves. So already complete insanity on the board, but he chooses not to do that. He doesn't go h4. Instead, he just decides to play the move g6, I guess trying to put his bishop on g7, okay? White plays knight takes d4 finally, and black could play e5 here, but now black plays this h4 move, and white plays g4, and now this sacrifice doesn't work because the bishop is free to roam. You don't have to actually go back to the corner. e5, and the knight goes out to b5. Okay, what the heck is going on? Can we just pause? Now white is much better. Why is white much better? King is safe, good pressure on the center. White actually achieved many of the goals of the opening, so very active piece play. These pawns are actually targets. They're not really assets for black. g5 is coming. So Lokander didn't quite evaluate everything that was going on accurately, and white just has a clear advantage. Okay, so black plays a6, kicks out the knight, and shoves the pawn forward once again. I mean, opening principles completely out the door. I mean, look at this. g5, white goes full danger levels here, and loses the advantage immediately. So in this position, it's +1 if white just casually moves his knight to the edge of the board. But instead of that, he doesn't do that. He goes danger levels, and now black is better if black plays the move knight h5. Black is slightly better, but not much better if black goes back to h7. And that allows white to play knight e4. Now, we are 13 moves into this game. Look at this setup for black. 13 moves into the game. We are watching 2 players with an average rating of something like 24-30 play a game of chess like this. If I had 700 rated students who played chess like this, I would ask permission of their parents to hit them over the head with their scorebook. I mean, this is ridiculous stuff what we're seeing here, okay? And we're 8 minutes into this video, and it's just gonna get worse and worse. Bishop e7, and here perhaps the most logical move of the entire game. White sees a rook that needs activating and a king stuck in the middle, so white goes for a pawn break f4. That's actually a very decent move. When you have better development and your opponent's king is stuck in the center, you should look for ways to open up the board. Black chooses to develop a piece with bishop to f5. And at every one of these moves, there are about 4 or 5 options for both players that the computers cannot even decide which one is best. Right now, white can take on e5, for example, and try to go knight f6. White doesn't choose to do that. White chooses to play e3. So now there is tension with both center pawns. White is just trying to shred open the position. Black says, no, thank you. I'd like to continue to hold the position shut. And notice as black has actually sneakily got all his pieces out. Like if we just go back a couple of moves, right? Terrible development, and suddenly 3 pieces come out, and now we have a game on our hands. The white plays bishop b2, which is a very bad move, according to Stockfish, not myself. And the point is this. White is just sacking a pawn. White is like, you can take on e3. I cannot trade queens with you because the position is extremely complicated. I need my most powerful attacking piece. I'm going to win this pawn back in a moment. Black says, no, you're not. I'm going to defend. my pawn, you have a king right here, and I'm going to castle queenside. So right now, black is doing very well. Knight bc3, long castles, and now that both kings have found some safety, it's the next phase of the game when we are going to try to launch devastating attacks on enemy flanks, because the kings are just, right? The kings are not going to be doing battle here. Knight a4 attacks the queen slides back and maintains a vision of this king if that pawn were ever to go forward. e2 check doesn't win the rook, because the rook would just come up and block the check when this pawn moves forward. Now, king h1. Sliding out of the way, obviously a logical move. Black brings the other rook to the center. So far, so good, everything logical. At this point, white has one and only one move that doesn't lose on the spot. White can take on h4, can take, doesn't, because even though that attacks this, after takes, and something like pawn takes f4, white is in serious trouble. For example, if you take my free knight, e2 attacks your rook, then comes my queen, and it's very, very bad news here. So this queen cannot go over here. It's just cannot do it. Just can't do it. Trust me, just not possible. White has only one move and one move only. Only one move and one move only that doesn't lose the game, and that move is undeveloping the bishop back to c1. Because you need to take this pawn. Now you might think, well, what if they take on f4? Absolutely. No, I mean, that's totally logical. Rook takes f4. And I'm going to win my pawn back on e3. And if I win my pawn back on e3, I don't really know what you're doing with that queen, because then I'm attacking you. So the game is hanging in the balance. Black apparently has two moves. I'm drawing arrows, right? Those are the only two moves according to the machine that do anything. Black instead doesn't want the queen trapped, brings it forward to put pressure on stuff, and all of a sudden white is now completely winning. Bishop takes e3 comes with tempo, and black's entire idea here was just to leave the queen in the middle of the board. That's what black wanted. Black did not want the queen shut out. But now, after knight b6 check, white is winning. Completely winning. But instead, white decides to take this pawn. White is still completely winning. Knight b6 check is possible. White is a pawn up. Why is white so winning in this game? Because white is threatening, for example, knight b6 check, and anywhere you move the king, I win your queen. So you've put your queen in the middle of the board, and it's just a gigantic target, right? This is not how it works, right? So rook h4 is threatening to win the game on the spot. Lokander here plays the move b5, and now it's +4. Max Hess the game is over. If Max Hess here plays bishop f4, which he does, and puts a knight on c5, he wins the game. There is a winning line here. Knight c5, trade queens. Let's say you take on c5, we go for a big trade of pieces, something like rook e8. The game is over because two knights are hanging. That's it. Two knights are hanging. The game is over. White just wins a piece, goes home. Knight ec5, ends the game on the spot. He plays knight b6 check, and all of his advantage nearly disappears. Oh my goodness. King b7, only move. Rook takes h7, takes the knight for free. But now this king gobbles the knight, which is actually a mistake. Apparently, black has to play... Are you ready for black's only move here? Bishop a3. That move legit does nothing. It looks like it legit does nothing. But you are adding an extra attacker to this knight, and this knight is trapped. I mean, folks, I told you, if your head is going to spin right now, wait until we get down to move 60, all right? I mean, this game, like I told you, it is the most insane game I think I've ever seen. The king takes the knight, and now Max Hess has a +3 advantage once again with the move queen f2 check. This move is winning for white because the queen gets out of the way, all right? The knight blocks the check, and now white moves the knight out of danger. The bishop is under pressure. Rook d1, c3 here with pressure on this knight. I mean, your king just can't stand on b6 like this. I mean, what is it doing, right? Black plays bishop c5. So now we are moving out of this pin. We're ready to maybe play knight b3 or something. White plays b4. b4 is not the best move. I think taking on f5 is. So here there's a hilarious variation. Knight takes f5. Queen takes f5. And the absolutely ludicrous move, bishop c7 check. Forcing the king to take the bishop, and rook f7 is a fork. It's a fork. It forks the king and the queen of white protects the rook. This is called X-ray defense. You defend your own piece through the enemy piece. Max Hess misses this move. He instead plays the move b4, attacking the bishop. And his whole point here is to deflect the bishop a couple of times away. So he sacrificed 2 pawns. So Max Hess is up a pawn, could play knight f5, but instead decides to sack 2 pawns. and play rook c1. All right? I mean, this is pure insanity. This is just completely insane. It still looks like white is completely winning, but black is able to defend his bishop. Right? Black is able to defend. Now, white here can try to just use his final queenside pawn to remove the defender over here, strip the whole queenside bare, but he takes on f5 now. The problem is that now, going for this bishop c7 idea, Lokander can move his king. He doesn't actually have to take and allow the fork. He doesn't have to do this. He can move his king to b5 or c5. One move is equal, one move is worse for black. He chooses the move which allows white to get an advantage. King c5 apparently is equal. I mean, look, this is beyond my level of expertise. I cannot tell you why king c5 is better than king b5. I really can't. I mean, here's why I think. Because king b5 allows a move by white which maintains an advantage. This move is borderline, like, unfindable below this level. I mean, you have to be minimum 2300, I think, to find this move. Because now black is up a pawn. The move here for white to give advantage is the... By the way, if you're just, like, confused why no one's taking this queen, it's because we were checking black. Queen f1. Sliding your own queen back to deliver a check, inviting a capture, because then you can check again, and then you can take the rook. And the point is that if you don't take the queen and you play king a4, I have queen a6, right? So you have to take me. You have to lose material here, have to do this, but Lokander doesn't. He blocks with the knight, and Max Hess is now once again completely winning, because he takes on d8. But black had a point. His point was queen d3. He now blocks this diagonal, and he's ready with knight g3, forking the king and the queen. Lokander is threatening to win the game by winning the queen. And white has one and only one move. It's plus 4.69. Nice. But white has only one move. Can you find the move? No one will find this move. Nobody. It wasn't found in the game. White to move and win. That move, folks, is the move a4 check. What? What? The point of this is if king... First of all, en passant, right? You could take en passant, but then queen takes f7. And the reason why queen f7 in the game doesn't work, well, it's a bunch of head spinning, because this was played in the game. He played queen f7, and now the position is equal. You have to play a4 check, because the whole point is that if black just takes the bishop, the queen gets back and attacks the king. King to b5, rook to b7, and you swarm the king using the open A line. You have to open up the queen side before you take on f7. You have to be able to get back with the queen. a4 check, either en passant or king takes, forces the b or the a file open before the queen takes on f7. In the game, Max has just took on f7, and now, oh, sorry, he took on f7, and now there's no way back to the king. If you play a4 check now, there is king a5, and the king is safe. If queen c7, the king runs this way, and black is the one winning. What is going on? What is going on? Now, there is only one way for white to save this game, and it's bishop c6 check. King c6, queen b7, king c5, rook c7, king d4. All engine line, by the way. Queen b6, king e4, and the game ends in a draw. It's like perpetual check. I mean, literally, you chase this king around the board and it's a draw. It's literally a draw. That didn't... Queen b7 check was played. The king runs out to a4, which is why you had to play a4 yourself. And black is now winning. Are you convinced that this is the craziest chess game of 2022? I hope you're convinced. If you're not convinced, then I'm sorry. King comes out to a4, and the game is simply over. Even though Max Hess is up 2 points of material, why is this game over? Why is it -4, but white is up 2 points of material? Because the king is safe. This king is not safe. But do the players know that? Queen c6 check, king to a3. And now white sacrifices the rook for the bishop with check. Black can take with the pawn or the knight. He cannot take with the queen because then the queen loses protection of a6. White will win the knight and win the game. bc3 or knight c3. He chooses knight c3 and loses a major chunk of his advantage. B takes c3 here, trying to make a queen, is -7 for black. And the reason it's -7 is because this king will hide on a1. I am not joking. The black king will hide on the white rook corner. What the Like, if there was ever a reason to curse in a YouTube video, it's right now. How do you even explain this? How? King on a1. But black takes with the knight. And now it's game on once again. a5. Rook comes back to f3. Queen d1. Are we going to have a draw? No, thank you. Queen c4. I'm not even fully convinced that this king is safe. I mean, is this king really safe? Rook comes to d1, king h2, rook d2. Okay, the white king is actually less safe than the black king if we're honestly comparing. Rook g3, a4. And suddenly, I mean, it looks like black is just going to go here and make a queen. But white's like, not so fast. I'm going to play h5. I'm going to play h5. And then when you take, I'm going to play g6, g7, g8. Wait, white is also threatening to make two queens. What is going on? Queen d1 prevents h5. Rook g4 allows it. These protect each other, and queen b4 is a threat. Knight takes a2. Rook b2 here apparently is the best move. Knight takes a2, and now we have check, king b2, and white is making a queen also. I mean, folks, what is this? I mean, folks, come on. What is this circus? I mean, I can't... we're going to have like 5 queens on the board. I mean, we're going to have this queen, and these two are going to become queens. And the position is completely equal. Rook d4 attacks the queen. The queen goes and helps. I mean, that's it. Just g7, g8. What are you going to do? h4? Not so fast. But now white is much better after rook f3. Rook f3, and Lokander throws in this. And now all 3 pieces can take the pawn. But all of them come with a cost. Rook f2 check. Attacks the king. Rook d2 blocks. White now has one move for 1.7 advantage. And that move is queen f4. Targeting the rook. Targeting the pawn. Rook f2 leads to this and promotion. Queen f4 is a move here for white. But instead of that, Max Hess plays g7 because how can you blame the guy? He wants to make a second queen. Queen f4 was white's final chance because now black is about to make a queen himself, right? So if you play g8 queen here, I just play queen h1, I make a second queen, and I'm attacking you. Basically, when there are 4 queens on the board, whoever checks first is probably going to win. So you can't do this. Instead of that, Max Hess takes on d2 with check and makes a second queen this way, where now this queen cannot go through. Folks, if you're confused why one player has 2 queens and the eval is 0, 0, 0, it's because black's queenside pawns are simply too powerful. Okay? They're simply too powerful. Black can play b3 here. What do you even do? I mean, actually, what do you do? If you mess around, I go knight c3, I'm going to make 2 more queens. I might make 3 queens. We might have a game with 6 queens on the board. I don't know. So queen takes g2 played. We have a trade. a3. I mean, how do you even... What do you do here? Queen f2 check. Queen f5. This is what you do. You realize that if you dilly-dally, if you play like king f3, b2, and try to walk in your king, it's never too late to lose this game. Like you actually could accidentally blunder a fork. You could walk in and allow your opponent to queen. So what ultimately ends up happening between Germany and Sweden in this game is a repetition of moves. And on move 67, the game ends in perpetual check and a draw with king and queen versus king, knight, and 2 pawns. Let's just take a moment to breathe. Was that not the most insane thing you have ever seen in your life? This game broke engines. If you analyze this with 5 different computers, not this position, but if you analyze this middle game with 5 different computers, I don't know what evaluations they could possibly give you. This was probably the most insane game I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot, and I have played a lot, and I have been part of many crazy games because of my playing style. Kudos to these players. This game almost looked fake. It almost looked like these two had a beer the night before and were like, yo, memorize these moves, let's do this. This game almost didn't look real. With all the twists and turns, all the evaluation swings, and a repetition of moves stemming from a 2-queen versus 1-queen and knight and pawn endgame. I mean, what more can I say? Thank you for hanging out with me on this Sunday. This is when this video is recorded. You probably are watching this in the future in some algorithm bump, but hope you have a good rest of your Sunday. Thanks for hanging out with me for 25 minutes. Yeah. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I'll see you in the next video. Get out of here.